Miss Elisha Fernando. Elisha is a final year law student of Sir John Kotalavala Defense University, plus an all-round product of St. Bridget's Convent. Her research interests include defense and security studies and human rights law. She has followed a diploma in human rights at the Center for Studies of Human Rights in the University of Colombo. She has presented several papers at many international conferences and symposiums. Over to you, Elisha.
Thank you very much, sir. Honorable Chair, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you. As we all aware, since the end of 3 decades of civil war, Sri Lanka is now presently experiencing the post-war era throughout past 7 years. During this tenure, several implications have been tested in peace-building process, whereas many challenges yet prevailed unsolved. Therefore, in order to discover the root causes of these challenges, the topic of this research is identifying the core challenges in post-war peace setting in Sri Lanka, a focus on peace triangle. First and foremost, let me introduce what is this peace triangle and what is its importance to place it as the literature of this research. Basically, peace triangle is a conceptual tool that has been developed to capture character and quality of peace in post-war societies. This has designed by Hoglund and Kovacs in 2010. It is also acceptable that this has a theoretical foundation of Johan Galtung's conflict triangle. However, peace triangle theory can identify as an analysis to the context beyond peace agreement to analyze the specific conditions in case where the war has been ended with a victory. Accordingly, it is clear that this suits well to the Sri Lankan context. As you all can observe, peace triangle outlines 3 essential dimensions, namely issues, behaviors, and attitudes. The first element of issues includes main issues during peace, such as unresolved, restored, and contested peace. This component covers the extent to which conflict issues have been solved or remained in the society relating to the aspirations of the parties as well as to the underlying grievances. The second element of behavior relates with partial, regional, and insecure peace, which concerns on the matters related to violence and insecurity in post-war society. And the final element of attitudes comprise, as you all can see on the slide, polarized peace, unjust peace, and fearful peace. Therefore, in research problem is focused on evaluating whether peace attitudes, which is one of the elements of the peace triangle concept, is a core reason for mitigating the accomplishment of sustainable peace in post-conflict Sri Lanka. Therefore, in conceptual framework, both qualitative and quantitative research methodologies were considered to evaluate 5 selected dependent variables on independent variables of issues, behavior, and attitudes of peace triangle in order to solve the research problem. These dependent variables have been gleaned through 5 controversial and tentative headlines which was debated and which are some still debating throughout the post-war era, namely recovery of weapons and ammunition during post-war stage, future of LTT ex-combatants, army camps in North and Eastern provinces, demands for internal or external self-determination state to North and Eastern province, and finally regarding linguistic justice. Moving on to discussion, first, it would be clear to find out who are the 2 parties considered to put into the evaluation of peace triangle. In Sri Lanka, when considering the population density during 30 years of warfare, majority of minority communities of Tamils and Muslims were in LTT territories, whereas majority of Sinhala community lived in territories which were under the control of Sri Lankan government forces. Accordingly, it is clear that minority communities of Tamils and Muslims and majority communities of Sinhalese are the two parties to assess the peace triangle in Sri Lankan perspective. This even became evident by the opinion survey carried out in North and East that nearly half of the Tamils and one-third of Muslims from former war zone did not trust the government's willingness to find a political solution to the conflict, whereas the majority of Sinhalese trust the government in this regard. This survey also found that society is polarized in terms of how they view the conflict, where majority of Muslims and Tamils view the conflict as an ethnic issue, whereas majority of Sinhalese believes that this conflict is a terrorist problem. Therefore, in order to evaluate on peace triangle, these two diverse parties have been considered throughout the research. Accordingly, moving on to the research findings, in this diagram, the whole idea of the research has been analyzed in a nutshell. As you all can see on the slide, here 5 dependent variables have been tested on the elements of peace triangle. First of all, before moving on to this comparison, it shall be noted that the meanings which are given to these terms are not exactly what the naked word means. In-depth definitions have been given to these by those designers. According to them, as you all can see the highlighted 3 words, a polarized peace means where polarization between main parties remain and political views and attitudes may have hardened. Secondly, an unjust peace means where issues relating to justice and reconciliation may constitute obstacles. And thirdly, fearful peace means where peace only prevails because of lack of opportunities for free expression and or movement. In evaluation, as you all can see in this diagram, firstly, if we take the incident of recent recovery of weapons and ammunition during post-war stage was capable to pivot the peace attitudes of the majority party into fearful peace of revival of an armed conflict in post-war stage because on the uncertain fact that the detection in Chava Kacheri being new arsenals or not. Second, with regard to the quantity of military presence in north and eastern provinces, it was evident that it shaped the peace attitudes of minority communities in war-torn areas. And third point of demands of self-determination state for north and eastern provinces was able to scatter the attitudes of majority community mainly on the element of polarized peace. Future of LTT combatants become another crucial point due to the fact that majority of Tamils and Muslim minorities were left unemployed. This also resulted a negative impact on attitudes. Final variable of linguistic justice is prevailed unresolved even prior to the civil war and yet prevailed unresolved to some extent, and it pertained all types of attitudes as on the slide. Accordingly, it is identified that the core challenge in post-conflict, post-war peace setting in Sri Lanka is not the issues, not the behavior, but the peace attitudes of the communities. Therefore, since this research finds conflict attitudes as the core challenge in finding possible solutions, this research recommends restriction of the mass media with regard to the tentative subject incidents, especially on defense-related matters, would be a suitable solution by enforcing Article 15(7) of the Constitution and Section 5(1)(b) of Right to Information Act. Because author believes that mass media, which includes both printed and e-media, has a major role in shaping societal attitudes in today's world. Now, one of you in the audience